My name is Leonid Kozlov. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I live in Russia, Moscow, and I was lucky to live for 3 years in Silicon Valley, where I co-founded one of the nice projects. It was the international accelerator and a hub for international startups coming to Silicon Valley. Today I'm going to speak about two things, actually, and I would like you to focus on two questions. First one is, how do we use technology to bring common sense to our life? This is the first one. And the second one is, everybody heard that AI and robotics are going to replace human and take our jobs. So what do we do then? Those are two questions. Could you please put my presentation on? Oh yeah, thanks. So 20 years ago, I was lucky, and I received my MBA working for the huge international corporation. It was one of the most successful American corporations with 200 years experience, and I learned a lot of it, out of it. But I was surprised on how inefficient really it was, and about the fact that people who worked for this corporation really didn't care about what they did. Go back 20 years ago. Imagine that you own an apartment in Karachi. And what if I was to say you that you could enter the international hospitality market and compete with fancy hotels like this one, like Mövenpick, just as easy as in 5 minutes? You'll be surprised. But now you just download the app, which is called Airbnb. You take a couple of photos and you receive the tourists from all over the world in your apartment. And you become more competitive if you care about what you do, if you love your guests and make your guests happy with your service, because you get reviews. And that's what one of the most greatest benefits that technology brings. It brings common sense. I'm going to talk about the music industry. I'm sure that nobody's in the music industry here in this hall, but I would like you to share our showcase and how we approach a pretty much complicated industry to reinvent it and bring common sense back. So music industry is a bit more complicated than tourist or taxi industry. So you probably all heard about blockchain and AI, and you know about the Uber and Airbnb approach, because Uber and Airbnb are true decentralized applications, because they don't use decentralized database as blockchain, but they bring decentralized approach in doing things together. Music industry is a little bit more complex, and I would like you to go into details and see how you could use the same approach in reinventing more complex industries. So in 20th century, we had also the corporate approach to music industry. We had record labels and we had global music stars, which were popular because some global record labels would invest a lot of money and would engage with global media to make those guys popular. And in 20th century, we had something like less than 1,000 international artists that became popular. And this system could not support more, because it was really hard to support more. But then came some technology app that you already know, like YouTube, social media, streaming services like Apple Music and Spotify. And now there's a phenomena that there's not 1,000 international artists right now, but more than 100,000 international artists that could sell out venues through all over the world. And the old industry just cannot support this kind of complexity anymore, because you cannot build a corporation to manage 100,000 artists. is just impossible. Comparing to Airbnb, you could reverse engineer the process. So for example, if you have 1,000 homeowners in Karachi, you would hire 50 people to control them, then 50 people for the office management, IT, and accounting. And then you scale it to the national level. You got district managers, you got country managers, and then you go back to international headquarters and you get the corporation that's controlling the homeowners all over the world, and you get like 500,000 employees working to control. And you got the headquarters somewhere in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the guys playing golf and getting $1 million paychecks just to control the homeowners. And Airbnb replaced it just one simple thing, the reviews, customer reviews for each owner. And you don't have to build this kind of complex organization anymore. For the music industry, you wouldn't be able to reverse engineer it with 100,000 artists. It's going to be too complex. How do we approach this kind of complexity with the technology? The main vehicle for the music industry right now is the social media, which is really complex. So we got hundreds of thousands social media influencers, which is in fact is a decentralized media of today. So people read Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, watch the videos on YouTube or TikTok and get the content, and that's how the information is promoted right now. The same for music industry. So you discover the music in YouTube or in Facebook when somebody shares it. And if you love it, you subscribe and you listen to this artist. And in fact, this creates a lot of big data points. So we have hundreds of thousands of international artists. We have millions of people listening to this music. And it's very different. We measure in our platform, we have 3,000 music styles. And this is really different people listening to different music. And the complexity of the data is really high. But if you manage to work with this kind of data and get the insights, it really provides you a lot of useful information. For example, there could be for example, electronic music producer in Amsterdam, and we see that he has a following in Japan, China, San Francisco, and Moscow, for example. And we see that he has 10,000 fans in each location. And we see which people are these, so who are they? And we know how to get them, because we know that they are subscribed to certain local social media influencers, and we know how to spread information about this particular artist to those guys. Knowing that, we're building the ecosystem that helps to get the local artists internationally to actually connect them with their local fans. Knowing the data, we can predict how many tickets is going to sell this artist in this location. So for example, if we bring a DJ from Amsterdam to San Francisco or Tokyo, we can say that he's going to sell, for example, 1,000 tickets in Tokyo and 2,000 tickets in San Francisco. And knowing that, we could pick up the local venue and the local promoters and producers to actually engage and produce the show. And knowing the fan profiles, we could actually spread the information about this particular artist in the media and actually sell out the concert. So we don't have to build a corporation on top of this process. We just pick up the right people and build the ecosystem. And we have the AI that actually controls the entire process and make things happen. So if the artist goes to San Francisco, we have to make sure that he's going to sell the proper amount of tickets and that the show is going to be a success. What do? We pick up the right venue, because we know the profile of the artist and we know who played actually before. By saying we, I mean our machine learning engine and the data that we have. So we don't have like hundreds of people manually looking what's going on with every of 100,000 artists. So we pick up the right venue and we make sure that those guys connect. And AI brings the magic by selecting out of those like hundreds of thousands of venues and artists, the right ones, the right match between those guys. And then they just do their job. So the venue is gonna host the concert. The artist is gonna do what he's best of, make the great concert and make fans happy. And we just make sure that everything goes smoothly. So if we return to the ecosystem, what do? We connect different parties of the ecosystem together, and our engine makes sure that everything works. So for the artist, we build the right tour logics. So we tell him where to go to maximize the revenues and make his fans happy. For the local venues, we provide the best international artists, which was impossible 10 years ago, because the local venues didn't have access to the international industry. And also we connect the influencers as a decentralized media to spread the information. And knowing the exact fan data in the social media, we could match them. So imagine this huge the social media big data, like hundreds of thousands social media influencers, millions of fans, and you have to pick up the right 2 or 3 of them to support the local show so that it's going to be a success. That's what our engine does. So summarizing this approach, if we were to manage hundreds of thousands of international artists and build up the corporation on top of that, that's going to be impossible. But if we bring the decentralized approach to this process, like we pick up local players, local artists, local venues, and we just connect them together to make sure they do what they're best of. And this is DAO. Have anybody heard about DAO? Decentralized autonomous organization. I believe that this is going to be the future replacement for the corporations. So what does it mean? Decentralized organization is just when right people do the right thing for the joint international process. So like in our case, artist from one country comes to the city in another country and joins with his efforts with local people to make the thing happen. So he's gonna need local producers, local promoters, local venues. And he joins up in the process of preparing the concert. And this is DAO, decentralized organization. And then we have technology to make sure that everybody gets the right amount of revenues out of this process. So we have to share the money between those parties that were involved. And there are a lot of questions. How would you measure who did the best? But technology works good in this case, because we can track all the efforts. And for example, in social media promotion, we can track which social media influencer sold how many tickets for the show. And he gets exactly the share of the revenues that he, according to the value that he brought. So this is DAO. We connect independent contractors together, and we see the proof of result and share the revenues. And of course, the most complex thing in DAOs is to make sure that all this complicated system works together. because the most complicated factor here is the human beings. When they get together, it's hard to predict what's going to happen. And that's why in 20th century you had to build the corporations to control. And now we don't have to control this in a previous way. We just build the AI algorithms that make sure that everything happens. In our case, for example, if the social media influencers do not sell the tickets, we just pick up another one. And our approach shows that the more soul and creativity they bring into the process, the more efficient they get. And it actually works not if you control, but if you really love what you do. And AI just helps to make it all together. Thank you very much. My name is Leonid Kozlov. It was my pleasure.